Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we are in the ship's brig. Without any Marines on board, it's not particularly heavily guarded anymore. The brig is one of a very small number of spaces that we have backdated to a period earlier than our period of interpretation. Battleship New Jersey Museum interprets the battleship as if it is 1990 when the ship was on her last deployment, because that is the condition in which we got the bulk of the ship. So it is much better for us to interpret the ship the way we have her than to get rid of all of the historically significant stuff that's there to backdate these spaces into earlier time periods. The brig is one of a small number of exceptions to that rule. In the 1980s, this space was actually one of several weight rooms on the battleship. The weight equipment was bought out of the crew's welfare and morale fund, and that sort of stuff, when the ship was decommissioned, gets taken off of the ship. It's not left on board like other outfitting equipment. So when the museum got the ship, this room was completely empty. And so we backdated it, restored it to how it would have looked in an earlier time period, because we were able to strip the parts that make it a brig from other ships. So none of this stuff is historically significant fabric to the ship, but this looks more or less like the brig should look based on the blueprints of the ship. So the brig ends up being deleted in the 1980s because you don't want to imprison people who do something wrong on the ship. Then they're not working and their shipmates have to pick up the slack. Most of the time, if a sailor does something wrong, they get their salary docked, they get extra work, extra duty, they get restricted liberty, all sorts of things that do not take them away from their work. However, if there is some sort of heinous crime committed, a murder or something like that, you do not keep that sailor on the ship. By the 1980s, we're able to helicopter those sailors off of the ship to a nearby base, which has facilities on land, much easier. And so, that's why this space is deleted by the end of the ship's career. Physical fitness is very important to the steam-powered Navy. In the old sail Navy, just operating the sails and stuff is enough physical fitness that you don't need to worry about that. But on steam-powered ships, where the motors do a bunch of work for you, you don't really need to do as much manual labor. So, any sort of opportunity for physical fitness is important for the crew. For example, 5 laps around the battleship's main deck is a mile. Check out this footage of the ship's Marines in the 1980s jogging on board. This space in the after superstructure is another weight room. This one was specifically for the ship's Marines to work out in. Originally, it was a 40mm clipping room. We can tell by the square door here on either side. We are actually in the base of the triple stack 40mm gun house that was added during World War II. Those 40mm guns are removed, but they just plated around these spaces to make them part of the interior superstructure. So, originally there would have been a 40mm on each side of us. You would have been passing ammo from here, and there was another one directly above us. Yeah, so you could pass ammo from this clipping room out to either side of the 40mm guns or above to the mount that's on top of this. When those 40mm guns are removed, this becomes an extra space, and during the great land grab that happened on this ship in the 1980s when she was being reactivated, the Marines got here first and were able to turn this into their specific weight room. So the Marines and the sailors are not working out together. On smaller ships, you might see that, or you might not even see Marines on board. But the tradition in the Navy is to keep the sailors and Marines separated. This goes all the way back to sailing ships, where the sailors sleep forward, the Marines sleep in the middle, and then the officers sleep aft of that. And by keeping the Marines and sailors in constant competition, it means if one force or the other were to mutiny, the other force would probably fight them rather than join them. And so you've got the Marines between the sailors and the officers, and even going forward to the battleship, you've got the Marines hanging out together as one group, working out in one space, and the enlisted sailors in another. This is actually the second of 3 weight rooms on the battleship in the 1980s. The third one was the warrant officer's mess on second deck up forward, which at a certain point was converted into the chapel, and that is probably when the weight room back aft in what was once the brig got installed. On board modern ships, it is very common to have weight equipment in the hangar decks. So having been on the littoral combat ship Savannah and the Arleigh Burke Flight 2A class destroyer Sterett, both of those ships have some of their hangar spaces reserved for weight equipment. Obviously, Iowa-class battleships don't have hangars, but they do have 1,600 other rooms to choose from. So you've got room for multiple gyms on board. So who do you think worked out more, the sailors or the Marines? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support, and there's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue to donate to support the museum and our YouTube channel. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about us. Thanks for watching.